Well, welcome to another episode of Cage Free Theology. I'm Clint Archer.
And I'm Will Brannon.
What are we talking about today, Will?
Yeah, what we're talking about today is the 2026 Shepherds Conference.
Okay, let's get into it.
So, Clint, today we don't have a question, we have a recap. We are doing our second annual recap of the Shepherds Conference, which just happened a few weeks ago. So let's start with, most people listening probably know what Shepherds Conference is, but really quick, what is it and why do you enjoy going every year?
Yeah, the Shepherds Conference is a gathering of pastors from all over the world, really. There were, I think, 65 countries represented.
Wow.
48 states. People come from all over. It's hosted by Grace Community Church and the Master's Seminary in Los Angeles. And this year there were 4,000 pastors there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. It was, hosted by John MacArthur. And he's no longer with us. This was the first year that we knew he wouldn't be there. Last year he wasn't there either, but he was intending to and just got too ill, and there was like a video that they showed.
Right.
And so this year the theme was the life and legacy of John MacArthur, and they usually get the kind of the big names in evangelicalism to come out and preach, which is what makes it one of the things that makes it special. And so this year they had John Piper was a keynote speaker. Paul Washer, H.B. Charles, Michael Reeves.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great one. And then, of course, a bunch of people from the Master's Seminary. And then at the Q&A, they had John Piper, L. Mohler, Mark Dever, who am I forgetting?
Ligon Duncan.
And Ligon Duncan was there, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of that panel was kind of like a memories of MacArthur's friends.
Yeah.
So before we get into the theme and the sessions, the things that we did, what would be your pitch to somebody to go? Because people think of it as, it's a pastor's conference, but a lot of people come that aren't necessarily pastors. So what would be the main reasons that you would encourage somebody, for lack of a better way of saying it, just like the average man in a church to attend Shepherds Conference?
Yeah, we actually met a lot of people this time who weren't pastors or senior pastors, maybe lay elders in the church. And we even met a handful of guys that were just there. They're just church members who are there who love preaching. And I mean, if you like good expository preaching, that's what it is. I mean, it's just like message after message after message after message, hours and hours of that. But just the fellowship with so many like-minded people. One of the main reasons I like to go is because so many pastors that I know will be there every year, alumni from the Master's Seminary. So friends of mine from seminary, that's like the one time of the year we all see each other, and pastors from all over. But yeah, even if you're not a pastor, especially if you go with a couple of guys from your church or you go with your pastor, we had some gentlemen come with us. And I know of some churches that bring, 20 men from their church together.
Yeah, my favorite thing about doing it every year is just as much the time in between sessions as the sessions themselves. Like the time with the guys that came with us from our church, talking to one another, not just talking about the sermons, which of course is one of the highlights, but life, ministry, all kinds of things. So the fellowship is a really cool aspect of it as well. So the theme this year you already mentioned was sort of the legacy of John MacArthur, and how they did it. I appreciated it.
Yes,
they basically took what were the key foundations of his ministry, things like the lordship of Christ, the sufficiency of the word, the clarity of scripture, and then the sermons were kind of shaped around that.
Right.
So this is a critique I sometimes see about Shepherds Conference, it's just like a MacArthur fest. Was this just like a let's get together and idolize MacArthur, and the conference was just centered around him?
I must say that's the thing I was most worried about, because
I think a few people were.
Yeah, and anybody who knows John MacArthur knows he would really be cringing at an idea of doing something at that scale in his honor. I mean, they had pictures of him on the name tags, and that I think he would be rolling in his grave, if that were a thing. But they actually did it very tastefully.
Yeah.
I mean, it was to honor. He started the Shepherds Conference, and it was to honor the legacy of what he did in his life, as far as as you say, like the major doctrines and contributions to evangelicalism, and to show that he's not the only person who thought that. Here's thousands of people who saying the same thing, and I thought every single person I heard did a really good job at not fawning on John MacArthur, making it about him at all, but making it about the Lord and the Lord's glory and the word of the Lord and the ministry of the word that we can all be part of.
Right. So let's dive into the main sessions. So what are some of the main takeaways that you had from the primary keynote speakers or those specific sermons?
Yeah, it might be worth explaining to somebody who hasn't been there before that every day there's a morning, an afternoon, and an evening general session where everybody crams into either the main sanctuary, and
emphasis on cram.
Yeah. And you're sitting tight. There's a couple of thousand people. I think there's about probably 2,000 to 3,000 people in that room, and then there's an overflow tent, a big marquee tent with big widescreen and all that, and there's another 1,000 or so people in there. And it's always funny when they open the doors and everybody runs for seats.
Yes,
you've got thousands of people who make a living telling people to be humble, all running for the best
seats.
Yeah,
it's not the best look, to be completely honest, but
I think we got some footage of that too. I try to get a bit of footage, but
it's like a Taylor Swift concert for pastors.
I wouldn't know, but I think with the Taylor Swift concert, you have assigned seating, and maybe they should consider that, because it really is. It's because I understand, if you're sitting in front, I got to sit near the front a couple of times and near the back a couple of times, and the main thing is the singing. You've got these thousands of male voices singing, and when you're in front and the music's right there and the whole orchestra, and you've got thousands of people behind you, I mean, there's no other experience like that.
Sure.
So, so that's the main session. And then between that, they'll have these breakout sessions where there'll be, 5, 10 at a time, with different speakers. So your question was takeaways from the
main sessions. We'll talk about the breakout sessions in a moment. But did anything stand out to you?
Started with Michael Reeves.
I think Abner Chou was.
Oh yeah, Abner Chou, of course. Yeah. Abner's always good. I mean, a lot of it all blurs together, and it's not one sentence or point or something that emerged. But what I liked about Abner is the way he made his points from kind of small linking words that the Legacy Standard Bible brings out, but some other versions don't.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Abner Chou was one of the translators. He was on the committee that translated the Legacy Standard Bible. And one of the things they try to do in that version is stay as close to the Greek as possible. And so there was just a couple of points, like when Jesus speaks and says, "I am," and the people fall over, and then they ask, at one point, he says this again, and they say it, but not again, and then he made points out of that. So I found that, quite interesting.
Yeah, a line from his that I wrote down kind of like in bold in my notes, and then I kind of moved it over to more permanent notes so I don't forget it. He had this line, which I thought was so helpful. He was talking about John 18, the Kidron Valley, and how Jesus, when he's betrayed, is in a garden, and he made this statement. In the Bible, places have memories and reputations. That was such a good line because it just drew out everything in the Bible is intentional. So he kind of traced the Kidron Valley in the Old Testament. What's the significance of the garden scene? Obviously, that takes us back to Eden. Adam failed, Christ succeeds. Like, he drew out so many ties. And something I'm doing right now is reading through the Gospel of John over and over again. And particularly paying attention to maps and where is Jesus and where is he going. So if you ever feel like you're used to your Bible and whatever you're reading, remember places have memories. Pay attention to where are you in the text. And Abner Chou drew that out so well into his whole sermon, I thought.
Yeah. And Michael Reeves did a great job as usual. He's the author of that book, Delighting in the Trinity, which is one of my favorite books on the Trinity. And anyone who's interested in knowing more about the Trinity, I always say start with that book.
Yes. Yeah.
And, he's got that rich British accent, and he's super tall.
It's not fair. When he for his
and
voice.
Expressive, and he's, he looks like he's doing kung fu when he's preaching. He's just, it's nice to see him live. It's great to be there for that. I like John Piper's session. I mean, he did one of the things he sometimes does with let's start with this problem and then let's solve it, and how these things work together. So you really have to pay attention. It's almost a bit more like a lecture. But
one of the things I actually like about Shepherd's Conference is you have so many different guys that are all committed to the word and to inerrancy and their authority coming from the text, but they don't all preach in the same way.
Right.
So if you compare, the way that John Piper structured his sermon to somebody like Abner Chou's sermon, they're very different. They're very different styles, very different ways of working through, but still helpful. It's not like you're hearing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. But I mean, Paul Washer was vintage Paul Washer again. H.B. Charles did a great job. One of my favorites every year, I know I said this last year, is Josiah Grauman.
Yeah.
And the poor guy, he always
has hard topics.
Yeah. They always give him like these topics probably no one else wanted to preach on. And this one was cessationism, you know, which is like, a little bit of an eye roll. It's like you go to a John MacArthur conference, there has to be a session on cessationism because that's one of the things that he was known for having an impact in the evangelical world. But Josiah did such a good job, like real gracious, tender treatment, very pastoral in teaching us how to talk about these issues and respect for the other views. And it's always refreshing just to see somebody godly and thoughtful dealing with those types of topics.
His iPad did not die this time, or his tablet, whatever he was using.
I remember last time.
One of the comments that he made that I had heard before, but just pastorally, the way that he said it, I thought was very clear and helpful when he was talking about Acts 2 and about prophecy. And so if that's coming from Joel, and in the end of days, there will be prophecy. So why do we say that this was for a certain period of time? And then they got into prophecy today. Some people view it as fallible, as you can have errors in prophecy, essentially. And I thought the way he tied that to what was the meaning of prophecy in Joel, and that's what Peter is citing. So it wasn't they wouldn't have thought of it as error in prophecy. It's the same gift. Yeah. And the way that he applied that, I thought was insightful, helpful.
Yeah. And I thought it was quite moving when he referred to his own condition. He was talking, he used to be a chaplain at I think an LA County hospital or something like that for a number of years. And he said you would get these faith healers that would come in wanting to come and heal people, and how discouraging that always is because, people, they don't have that power. They just think that they do, and they don't. And it's always the person's fault for not being healed because they don't have enough faith or that. So he says to them, you can come in after you heal me. And he just spoke very openly about his own issue. He has a condition, and he said, it's kind of obvious to see I'm 6 foot tall and I weigh 120 pounds, and listed some of the things that make him look frail. And he's like, if you can heal me, let's try that. And if you get that, I'll let you go and see my patients. It was interesting. Yeah.
One of my favorite ones was Paul Twiss. I've only heard him preach live twice, but I love his preaching. I love it. It's very pastoral, and he very much focused on for pastors. He said this in his sermon: your people's greatest need is your enjoyment of Jesus. And it's just such a helpful reminder of the importance of a wonder and awe for Christ and life, and especially in pastoral ministry.
Yeah. He also has that British.
Yeah, that might be one of the reasons he's my favorite, or one of my favorites. Yeah,
he was in the Royal Navy, and I think he told John MacArthur, I might be the only person who read the Gospel according to Jesus on a submarine.
Yeah, good. So that's some of the main sessions. We didn't touch on all of them, but just some highlights. What about breakouts? What breakout sessions did you do while you were there?
I always go to Alex Montoya. He was a preaching professor of mine, and I encouraged the men who were with us. You've got to go and see Alex Montoya. He's a character, like an old school, speaks with this great Spanish accent, and we were doing impersonations of him. I'm not going to do that right now.
I was going to say, you did like a 5-minute long impersonation as an advertisement for his talk. And I wasn't sure if you were going to do that.
I was not going to do that, but afterwards, they said I nailed it, and then they started doing that impersonation.
He was in particularly true form during that talk that he gave. Yeah,
he was.
So this was about the longevity of ministry, and basically just like toughen it out, trust the Lord, and keep going. Yeah, it's kind of a summary of what he said.
He's been in ministry for decades in a difficult part of Los Angeles, and he's just he just has this great wisdom and confidence in the Lord, and is really good at delivery. And that's what he taught at the seminary, was how to preach.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we had the breakout sessions, and this wasn't an official Shepherd's Conference breakout session, but you were actually involved in a little session kind of offsite from the church. Do you want to talk about the LSB dinner and informational meeting that you were part of? What was that? How did you get roped into it? What was that like?
Yeah, one of the things that happens at the Shepherd's Conference is in the evenings after the sessions, there'll be these dinners that are hosted by different groups. Like there was the Master Seminary Alumni Dinner, for example, that we went to, and they give updates. And the one that we got invited to go to was the Legacy Standard Bible Update dinner. And so they provided, tacos, and that we got some footage of that. And then the fun part about that was that they were selling B-grade Bibles. And so I got one. This I mean, I can't tell what's B-grade about it, but I guess it's like a Bible that's been unwrapped and been on display or something that they can't now sell. So they were selling those at discount prices. So I was like, ooh, Bibles. And so I was invited because of the episode that you and I did on the Legacy Standard Bible and how our church introduced that version. We switched from the ESV to the LSB, and how we did that. We made a video about that here on Cage Free Theology, and the people at 316 Publishing saw it and liked it, and invited me to be on a panel with Justin Peters and Tom Buck, and it was hosted by the CEO Gary Kim, and they just asked us questions as pastors and people in ministry, how we introduced the LSB to our congregations. And so that was just a fun evening of fellowship and a good turnout.
Yeah. I enjoyed watching you up there. Yeah. So that was a good time. So that's, I have one more thing to talk about that became a bit of a, I don't know if controversy is the right word, but before I turn to that, do you have any other insights from the conference itself, things that you enjoyed, things that edified you, just anything at all about the conference?
Yeah, just, I love seeing all the volunteers there. They have over 1,000 people that are from Grace Community Church that are not being paid to be there. In fact, they often take vacation time off their full-time jobs to come and serve. And so you've got these gentlemen, these ladies, wherever you go, they're all wearing black. They've got these little buttons that say "Saved to Serve," and wherever you go, they're handing out donuts and warm chocolate chip cookies and pouring you coffee, and you can go sit down and have your shoes shined for free at the shoe shining station. And it's like, I don't know, it's like heaven. Everything's it's like the angels in heaven serving the needs of the saints.
Do you think there's shoe shining in heaven? Are there shoes in heaven? Anyway. Is that another episode?
That's another episode. But yeah, so those volunteers are always so encouraging. They're so friendly and they're so happy to serve. And even by the end of the week, I mean, hour after hour after hour of serving, you can see that they're delighting in blessing pastors, which I was encouraged by.
Yeah, I think that's always another reminder. Just being there is the importance of wanting that servant heart. And you're not just getting that from the preaching, you're getting that from the people serving you, and just how humbling that is. Yeah. So when you go to Shepherd's Conference, you kind of enter like another dimension. It's almost like a time warp where you're just there and you're not really aware of what's happening outside of the conference necessarily. And one night we were getting back to our rooms quite late each night, but I remember checking my phone and seeing like, oh, there's the controversy of the week, because there always has to be one.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw one that was kind of a dust-up related to Shepherd's Conference, and it was specifically because of Paul Washer and a particular moment in Paul Washer's sermon. So you want to give an overview just of what was said and then what was some of the controversy around it, and then we'll at least talk through this a little bit.
You're talking about the part where he said he went to visit John MacArthur.
Yeah, when he visited MacArthur.
Yeah, he went to visit John MacArthur shortly before he had passed away. And when he came there, I guess he asked him some spiritually challenging questions, or questions that the people who were listening to this thought were challenging. And his point was that, everybody needs people to care for them, and that we need to constantly be edifying each other in this way, even if it's someone like John MacArthur. And he said, you've got two brothers in Christ, one far greater than the other, referring to, he considers John MacArthur greater than himself. And so the questions he asked were, what are you reading? Are you in the Word? How's your communion with the Lord? Are you growing? I'm sure you could just Google that little
that was
clip
the
or
gist
whatever.
Of it, yeah.
But the people took that as, well, who does he think he is, challenging John MacArthur on his deathbed? Like, people on their deathbed don't need law, they need grace. They just need to be encouraged.
And they need the gospel.
They need and I think that these are people that are taking a YouTube clip out of context.
We were both there when he said it in the sermon. Did it stand out to you at all? As that was off, that's a weird thing to say to somebody, or did it seem very natural in the moment of the sermon?
No, it absolutely didn't stand out. I think there was something else he said in the sermon. I thought, oh, that might be a dust up. I forget what that is. It'll come to me in a moment. But no, I mean, it was just the point he was making, I think, is a valid point, is that we need to be encouraging one another and making sure that we don't become hardened to or calloused to the things of the word and the work the Lord is doing, so that our ministry doesn't become separated from our devotional lives. And I mean, if you invite Paul Washer over, whether it's your birthday or your deathbed, you're going to get Paul Washer. And I mean, that's who he is. And he and MacArthur had a good relationship. And I thought it was a very pastoral thing for him to do.
Yeah, I actually found it helpful, because if you think about if somebody's ministering to me, if I'm suffering, or just pastorally, if we visit people who are suffering, there's a time and a place for everything, but it is good to check on a brother and say, how are you with the Lord?
Yeah.
How is your faith? How is your time in the Word? Are you still treasuring Christ? And then when that turned into a controversy and about like, you don't give your people law, you give them the gospel. One thing that I think is important, just for the context of what Paul Washer said, he specifically said in the sermon that this was last year during the Shepherds Conference. So that's March of 2025. MacArthur died later in the year. So one of the ways that I saw this framed online, it's almost like MacArthur's literally like on his deathbed. He's got, tubes in his body, and Paul Washer walks up to him while he's about to die and says, like, how's your prayer life? Like that's not what happened. He's talking about MacArthur was frail. Yeah. He was weak, but we saw the video. He had months to go. And so a brother is with him saying, as you are in the final stage of your race, how are you with the Lord? To me, that's godly. Like, I hope there's somebody who can do that for me if I get to that season of life.
And his point was to relay John MacArthur's response, which was, yes, I am. This is what I'm learning. This is how my heart is being warmed by the things of the gospel. No, I think it was wonderful.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I was thinking of that was going to be a controversy was when, and I saw clips about this, that it wasn't something Paul Washer said, it was something John Piper said, where he made the point, what was it with this? Where he said, that he considers anger to be a more besetting sin than lust.
For him, yes.
For him.
Yeah, this was in the panel that they did,
during the panel. And I mean, I just appreciated the transparency there, and it really does make the point that different people are tempted in different ways, and that everyone's temptation and the thing that they're struggling with is real to them. And yeah, I was very encouraged by that.
Yeah, very good. You have any other takeaways?
We walked around with our cameras and microphones and interviewed some people and saw some things. So why don't we show some of that footage that we recorded for those who are watching the video? Okay, it's that time of the year again. We are here at Grace Community Church for the Shepherds Conference.
that does it for this episode of Cage Free Theology.